This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so here's a big lesson in about 60 seconds. We're at 15 right now about big data. So, one of the things we talk about when we talk about competition is we talk about how data can be used to really hone in on your positioning so you can make an effective sale. And in our last blog post, we talked about yoga. And we talked about all the different kinds of searches that can be done. So, in looking at this, you can see that we have all these different questions. The use cases that we're selling yoga mat, and we want to see where can we enter the conversation of the customers who want to buy a yoga mat. And so, the best thing we can do now is come up with some different ideas of where to enter the market. So we have here, are yoga and Pilates mats the same? We also have yoga balls good for pregnancy, or yoga mats toxic? We have a few different things, what yoga mat to buy, things like that. So when we look at these different questions, we could actually look at what's called the web fire hose and be able to ask, what is going to make an effective position for my yoga mat company? So let's look at a few things. So the first thing we're going to look at is where yoga mat purchases come from. Do they just come from the purchase of a yoga mat? Do they come from a yoga class? Do they come from yoga teachers? And when we looked at a big data search of the yoga market, it turned out the volume of searches in the past 30 days or conversations have been around yoga classes. So clearly, as a yoga mat company, we're going to look at classes now as a primary driver for traffic. And then we're going to also look at, where is the conversation primarily happening? So you can see here that there's a lot of conversation happening in the United States. There's some over in Europe, in Russia, as well as China. And we do have some smaller samples of conversations in other countries. Um, and we're starting to see kind of where those conversations are coming from. So, for example, we're going to look at, what does the green part mean, right? So that's yoga mats, I believe. Let's see. Oh no, that's actually yoga class. So yoga classes are tend to happen in the United States. It looks like there's some happening in Brazil and some happening in different countries. So we're a yoga mat company. We're based in the United States. So again, it looks like classes are the big winner. Yoga teachers are the winner in other countries. So in Mexico and India and Australia, it would be better to focus on the actual teachers. But in the United States, it's better to focus on the classes. And this is where big data search really pays off, is we start to figure out, where do we really fit, right? So we're a yoga mat company in the United States. Classes has a lot of volume worldwide, and in the United States, classes has the most volume. So we want to really focus on yoga classes. And then when we look at the overall sentiment, the biggest sentiment again is around yoga classes, right? And the bulk of the conversation is around yoga classes on every platform. So this is something that big data can help you make decisions on really, really quickly. It's something you can only get in the fire hose. And so once you have that, you can start to do some better analysis. So what Data 360 does is we really help you then determine a strategy using data. And so let's go to kind of where this data leads. So in the yoga market data, we have related topics, we have keywords, and we have geography. We talked a little bit about geography earlier, but we're concerned with a couple different things. We're concerned with being able to target more than one or two communities, and we're also concerned with audience size. So in this particular search, this big data search, we found out that there are a lot of different markets with big audiences, but they may be only driven by one community and not several. And so, from an advertising standpoint, that's not good. We don't want to negotiate with one community. We don't want to be stuck with one community. That could actually skew your marketing or bias your marketing in a really ineffective way. So, when we start looking at where we get a volume of audience and we get a volume of communities, that starts with books. So, for example, we find out that most of the conversations about classes, but the conversation also in the yoga market focuses specifically on the subcategory of books. Be able to say, okay, books are an effective way to associate with that. So maybe we want to start packaging our yoga mat with books, yoga books. We also want to look at the fitness uses for a yoga mat because you see, fitness also has a reasonable volume of communities and a bigger audience. Food, right, or nutrition. So sort of food and health kind of go together. You can see there's a volume of a volume of communities here that can be focused on. So maybe there's some kind of package between the yoga mat and food and nutrition and health. And then, of course, blogging. Blogging has a big enough amount of communities and a sizable enough audience. So maybe we want to send our new packages of books and fitness info and health info with our yoga mats to bloggers, right? And where Data 360 then comes in to help you grow that market is we can find the specific people in these audiences to target and have their entire footprint ready, which is part of our next block. We can also see again the volume is about the classes, right? We talked about that earlier. 21 million, an audience of 21 million is in the dialogue about yoga classes. So this is how you know you're kind of talking about the right market versus others. Now you could go after the teacher market, but again, remember in the last analysis, we saw that a lot of that had to do with other countries, not so much the United States. So this is why you need big data, because you could say, oh, 255,000 is big enough for me, but you're not realizing that that 255,000 is actually in the wrong countries. And then last, in looking at geography, we can start to look at and really see, where the audiences are coming from and what they really mean. So you can also see that by country, so far in the analysis, we're looking at 151 communities in the United States, then the United Kingdom, then Canada, then Palau, oddly enough. And so there are lots of different countries and places we can target, but again, look at the audience drop. So we want to be effective when we target both the number of communities in the country. So clearly, the United States, like the other analysis shown on our big data system, is the United States is the best place to go, right? So we have a couple different things we've learned in the analysis system that's provided by Data 360. One is we've learned about what countries, we've learned about, ancillary markets like books and fitness and food, and health and bloggers. We've also learned that we can look at the specific intersection of the market and see where to position ourselves. So in this particular analysis, it's yoga classes. So yoga mats related to yoga classes, and then putting together those packages, bloggers who focus on classes, fitness and classes and health and classes, and so you want to just keep putting together this intersection of wonderful things. So we'll put together the analysis on the blog post, and then you can see kind of how it all comes together from this video. Thanks.